If I had $1 for every time someone asked me how I went from nothing to earning 400k per year as a web designer, I could probably give up making websites altogether. It always seems too good to be true when you see it online. Typical rags to riches. And in my case, you see someone go from living in the mum's box room, commuting to a dead-end job that they absolutely hate, to being one of the leading Squarespace developers in the world, earning 6 figures each year with just 3 years of concentrated effort, really. So I've done this having never studied anything design related before. And yes, it's a cliche, but cliches often exist because there's a lot of truth to them. Because back in 2020, I would spend my days in bed watching car videos and horror films. I'd watch other people crushing it online and then go back to my lazy, unfulfilled life. So I know for a fact that if I can go through this transformation that we're going to go through now, then anyone can. And in this video, I'm going to share my journey, how I went from earning nothing, like literally nothing, to earning the big bucks in just a few short years. I started where most people do, which is essentially right down at the bottom. There were no handouts from friends or family, no rich mummy or daddy to fall back on if it failed. I had to put the hard time in, doing the degrading jobs that leave you questioning, what's the point? If we look back 9-10 years ago, I was just a student who spent all of his money on booze, working as a kitchen porter, washing other people's dirty dishes. You should have seen my hands. They were like prunes from all the chemicals. And I was always tired, and the motivation, it was just on the floor. I'd say actually, if it was possible to be lower than the floor, then that's probably where it was. All I cared about realistically was collecting my little paycheck at the end of the shift and then getting home to watch TV and play, video games on my PlayStation. And obviously, as a student at the time, a healthy portion of that also went towards booze and, whatever else. And it's not a great lifestyle. It's certainly not one conducive to becoming, a world leader in web design, especially considering at the time I was studying sports psychology, which is literally nothing to do with design at all. But even post-uni, it didn't get much better. What I did was I worked at a local information centre here in Liverpool, directing people to the nearest, public toilet or telling them that, no, I know this is your first time, but you're not going to see the Beatles. And I was bringing home, I'd say, less than £1,000 a month. And I was still living at home with my mum. But slowly, the motivation to actually do something with my life was growing. Don't really know what it was, but just being sat behind that little desk in the information centre, I started to see the world was big and there was just so much opportunity. But I just had to find, how could I get out there and experience them? You're probably thinking, oh, that must be when you decided to be a designer. Nope, not even close. Back then, I tried everything that I could think of. I got a new job in property thinking that I'd be the next big property developer. And instead, what happened was I became a cleaner, cleaning the students' accommodation and picking up all the discarded ciggies from the building or outside the building that I used to live, which wasn't a great time in my life, believe it or not. And then after that came a stint as a personal trainer. I'm a big fan of the gym, and so what I thought was, well, this is the perfect way to make big bucks. They say you enjoy what you do and you'll never work a day in your life. So what I did was I completed a PT qualification and I was ready to go. But I had one problem. I didn't have any clients. So what I did was I found myself walking around a little village where I was still living with my mum, dropping off loads of business cards in the post office, dry cleaners, wherever. And might surprise you, might not, but not a single person got in touch. And obviously that hurt, but I wasn't going to give up. So what I did was I started making fitness and diet plans for friends and family who, to be honest, I think they were just human in me. And I think the final straw was when I put together a plan for my girlfriend's mum, and I'd accidentally, well, not accidentally, I thought it was a good idea. I put avocado in a meal plan and she hates avocado. And then it kind of started to dawn on me, maybe this isn't the path. And looking back, even though it was a short-lived stint, it taught me so much that I utilise still to this day. And I realised, that I was motivated and I was keen to find something bigger and better. I'd given up weekends to train, complete the course. I'd walked tens of thousands of steps every day, giving out these bloody business cards, trying to find clients. And I knew I had the willpower, I had the perseverance, and I had the discipline. What I just needed to do was point that motivation and discipline in the right direction. And it was around this time that my girlfriend decided to start a blog. She was working in marketing and she saw how all the big blogs and influencers were starting to blow up, and she decided, she wanted to get in on the action. So she convinced me as well. And so the Man Blueprint, which is my blog, was born. I was blogging about anything and just everything, men's health, travel, wellness, just stuff I enjoyed, and so I didn't mind writing about. And after starting to get a really small trickle of partnerships, and we're not talking big name brands or anything, we're talking free socks, beard oil, and bizarrely, I got sent a mattress once. But anyway, I was like, this is proof of concept. I'm going all in. So I decided, I quit my job at the information centre, which is somewhere I went back after I failed as a PT. And then I went full-time blogger. My girlfriend, she thought I was mad. She didn't say it to my face, but I know now that she was wondering why on earth she was going out, to this 9-to-5 job, working hard to climb the corporate ladder while, her boyfriend was laying at home in bed in his mum's house writing about free socks and beard oil. And I can't say I blame her, to be honest. The blogging, it went really well, to be fair, after some serious graft. I was getting free holidays and I was landing some fairly big brand deals after a while, but it never quite paid the bills, and I was never really cut out in the mould of your conventional blogger. So I felt like I needed something else where I wasn't always having to write reviews on products that had been sent. All that said, blogging was the first thing that really set me on the right path. And it was over coffee with a friend who I'd met at a local blogger event about a year or so before. He'd asked me if I'd ever heard of a platform called People Per Hour. To be honest, I thought this sounded like some sort of escort service, and I wasn't that desperate just yet. But believe it or not, it wasn't that, obviously. It was a marketplace for people to find freelancers. So let's say, as someone who writes stuff, he was like, Sam, you could be good at copywriting. I had a blog, I could string words together, why not? So after signing up, I got my first job after maybe a couple of weeks of just pitching every day. And I thought, here we go. The business is launched. This is it. It's happening. And I was paid $10 for a week's work. By the time I'd paid the fees to the platform, I had just enough money for the coffee, basically. The big time, it was not. But it did prove the concept to me that, the world of making money online is real. People actually will pay me to do something for them, and I didn't have to go to an office or a physical job. I saw that as my opportunity. It was mine for the taking, and I just had to keep building, get more experience, make myself the very best in my little writing niche. At first, what I did was I opted to take the approach of taking on as many low-paid jobs as I could. Who cared if I was making 10 hours? For 10 hours, I was getting paid like $20. I was making money. It was happening. I was bringing home about, I think, $800 a month, something like that, and writing God knows how many words. But the concept was proven. I was out here making dough. People were really paying me. The imposter syndrome, obviously, it was going crazy, but it was starting to come together. Now, after a while, I decided it was time to get serious, and I rebranded my own copy agency. It was Crawford & Co, it was called. And this was the start of about 10 rebrands. I started offering social media, marketing, and then what else? I can't remember what else I did, but it was everything. And then I rebranded as Constellation Media. And this part's important because when I settled on Constellation Media, I built a website for the business for the first time. And the site was built on Squarespace, this platform that I'd found out about through YouTube like the week before. And then one random day, I think it was 2020, before the world went into meltdown, someone asked me if I could build him a website. And I say someone, it wasn't some mysterious tycoon, it was my stepdad. And he rang me while we were in the airport security queue, about to go on our last holiday for about 3 years. And he said, Sam, are you any good at websites, and can you do a website for me? As far as, origin stories go, it's not that exciting, but it lit a new spark. So after teaching myself how to use Squarespace, I've rustled him something up that looked a little bit like a website, but he was made up, and weirdly, so were loads of his connections on LinkedIn and colleagues and whatever. And it was just mad. I couldn't believe anyone actually liked something that I'd thrown together with next to zero experience. And so now I also offered web design alongside, copywriting, marketing, and then social media management as well at the time. And I was spinning way too many plates. I just didn't really realise it yet. And then I also started outsourcing work to other freelancers. This was probably, in hindsight, the biggest misstep that I ever made. Time and time again, I was just being let down. Like, the work wasn't up to scratch or just not even delivered at all. It was then that I realised two things. So one, the only person I could trust is me. And perhaps my dream of running this big, fancy agency full of people wasn't the dream after all. And then two, I really enjoyed web design. That was the thing that I got lit up by. And I was kind of passing over social media and copywriting stuff over to my girlfriend and then whoever else was, good at that. So Squarespace was the one. Squarespace was the new direction I wanted to take everything in. And add this to the fact that a couple of WordPress developers let me down for huge sums of money. And also at the time, a very well-known financial business here in the UK didn't pay me around £6,000 it was of invoices for me copywriting work. And, we've got quite a recipe for just packing it all in and focusing on one thing that didn't cause me a headache, Squarespace. And it's not just building Squarespace websites either, but learning and immersing myself in the platform, discovering as much as I could about this, whatever this website builder is. I was determined to be the best. But it's also worth noting at this point, I was nowhere near the big league. It was lockdown. So me and my girlfriend were back living with my mum. I was bringing in about $1,000 a month, but I could finally see the light at the end of the tunnel. I'd finally stumbled on something that I knew it could be big. I just had to keep at it, and so I did. I built websites for free during the pandemic for anyone who wanted one. I built websites for tiny companies and friends of friends, taught myself how to code as well. So what I did was I asked hundreds and hundreds of questions on the forums, Facebook communities, and then I watched endless YouTube tutorials. I stuck it out when, I watched a lot of people around me just give up. I knew that realistically I could do it, and I did. So since that summer around 2020, I've never once wavered from just Squarespace. What I've done is I've built my portfolio and I've gained experience, and I've rebranded to By Crawford. And through sheer hard work and honestly complete stubbornness, I'm now an official Squarespace partner, Squarespace Circle member, Squarespace community leader, official Squarespace panelist, and I've also put out over 300 free educational videos in the past 18 months alone. So just last year as well, I travelled out to New York for Squarespace Circle Day. And what I do now is I bring in about 40k a month through By Crawford. And what's crazy to think is that when we were coming out of lockdown in the UK, I said to my girlfriend that I want to be the guy that people in my city come to when they want a Squarespace site. That was the ultimate goal. And now my reality is that if anybody in the world wants a Squarespace website, they come to me. The levels that you can climb are so far beyond what you think are possible. And I promise you that. I never had such grand ambitions. I couldn't see myself talking with Squarespace employees on an official panel. I couldn't see any of the crazy stuff that's happened so far. And it is literally only been 4 years. And all of this to say, just think bigger. Your entire life can change so far beyond your wildest dreams. It's almost comical. You just need to genuinely believe that you're destined for something bigger and then pursue it every day until you're so far past that dream that you forgot you even hit it. People often say things like, oh, imagine if old me could see me now. And that's the thing, that lad who was pot washing and picking up cigarette butts, he knew something like this would be in his future. He just wasn't sure how to get there or exactly what it would be like. But he didn't doubt himself, and he knew that if he could just do the right actions every day, then it would make his end goal inevitable. And those right actions are exactly what I teach web designers through Six Figure Design Club, which, in case you haven't seen yet, is my course where I take web designers from wherever they are right now to 100k a year and beyond. That journey I just took you through, that took me around 8 years. The Squarespace portion, around 4. I didn't have anyone to guide me. I didn't have any mentors, no favours, no nothing. If I had a course like this and a mentor like me, I could have done all of that in 2. And that's why I created it. So if you want to check it out and see if you're a good fit to join, then you can check it out using the links in the description. If you have any questions, obviously just drop them in the comments. And make sure to remind yourself of my journey when you feel like you're not making the progress that you feel like maybe you should because of what you're being fed on social media. It took me close to a decade. Even when the chips are down, it feels like all's lost. If you keep the fire in your belly and you put one foot in front of the other every single day, even when realistically you don't want to, you'll find your path. For me, that path was Squarespace, and I wouldn't change it for the world.